Hey family, welcome to episode 21 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode we talked about World War II and the WWII campaign, fighting fascism overseas and racism at home. But when the war ended, black soldiers came back to a country that still refused to treat them as equals. Black veterans returned with new confidence, new skills, and a simple question. Why should I fight for democracy abroad and be denied it at home? Instead of gratitude, many were met with segregation, violence, and discrimination. But this time, our people weren't backing down. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, legal challenges and grassroots organizing began picking up speed. Black Americans started challenging segregation in schools, housing, transportation, and voting. Not just with protests, but in the courts. This era gave rise to a new kind of resistance, organized, strategic, and impossible to ignore. Churches became meeting spaces, students became leaders, veterans became organizers. The groundwork was being laid for something bigger, a movement that would force America to confront its lies about freedom and equality. Follow for episode 22, where we step into the early victories of the civil rights movement, including the moment segregation in schools was finally challenged head-on. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.
Hey family! Welcome to episode 22 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode, we saw Black veterans and organizers laying the groundwork for the civil rights movement. Now, it's time for the first major crack in segregation itself. In 1954, the Supreme Court made a historic decision in a case called Brown versus Board of Education. They ruled that segregated schools were unconstitutional, officially saying that separate but equal was a lie. For the first time since Jim Crow began, the law admitted what we already knew. Segregation was wrong. But the South didn't just accept it. Schools delayed integration. Governors resisted. White mobs threatened black children who dared to walk into formerly all-white schools. Then, in 1955, something simple but powerful happened in Montgomery, Alabama. A woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. That one decision sparked the Montgomery Bus Boycott. For over a year, black people walked miles to work, organized carpools, and refused to ride until the city finally ended bus segregation. And in that boycott, a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr. rose into national leadership. This moment proved something important. When we organize together, we can force America to change. Follow for episode 23, where we'll talk about sit-ins, student movements, and the rise of a new generation of freedom fighters. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.
Hey family, welcome to episode 23 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode, we talked about Brown versus Board and the Montgomery Bus Boycott, the moment segregation finally started to crack. But now, a new generation was stepping up. In 1960, 4 black college students in Greensboro, North Carolina, sat down at a whites-only lunch counter and refused to leave. They didn't yell. They didn't fight. They didn't move. They just sat there. That single act sparked a wave of sit-ins across the South. Students filled lunch counters, libraries, movie theaters, and public spaces, demanding the right to exist without segregation. They were beaten, spit on, arrested, dragged out by police, and they kept coming back. This movement gave birth to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, a youth-led organization that became one of the most fearless forces in the civil rights movement. Young people weren't waiting on permission anymore. They weren't waiting on politicians. They weren't waiting on slow court rulings. They were forcing change with their bodies, their courage, and their refusal to back down. The message was clear. Freedom wasn't just being negotiated, it was being demanded. Follow for episode 24, where we'll dive into freedom rides, brutal backlash, and the moment America saw its racism on live television. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.
Hey family, welcome to episode 24 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode, we talked about how young people launched the sit-in movement and refused to accept segregation quietly. But now, the fight was about to hit the open road. In 1961, interracial groups of activists called the Freedom Riders boarded buses traveling through the South. Their goal was simple: test whether the federal government would actually enforce laws banning segregation in interstate travel. They knew what was waiting for them. And it came fast. In Alabama, mobs attacked their buses. One bus was firebombed. Riders were beaten with pipes, chains, and fists while police stood by and did nothing. But instead of stopping, more riders kept coming. They filled the jails. They faced death threats. They kept riding. And this time, the whole world was watching. TV cameras captured the violence. Newspapers ran the images. America could no longer pretend it didn't know what was happening. The Freedom Rides forced the federal government to step in. Segregation signs in bus stations finally came down. But the message was bigger than buses. It proved something powerful. When we exposed injustice in public, the system couldn't hide anymore. Follow for episode 25, where we'll dive into Birmingham, fire hoses, police dogs, and the movement that finally forced new civil rights laws. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.
Hey family, welcome to episode 25 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode, we saw how the Freedom Riders exposed Jim Crow on live television. But now, the movement was about to hit a breaking point. In 1963, the civil rights movement turned its focus to Birmingham, Alabama, one of the most segregated and violent cities in the South. The plan was simple: non-violent protests to force desegregation and fair hiring. The response? Pure brutality. Police Commissioner Bull Connor ordered fire hoses powerful enough to knock adults off their feet. He unleashed police dogs on peaceful protesters, including children. Kids were arrested, students were jailed, teenagers were blasted with water and bitten by dogs, all for demanding basic human rights. And once again, the world was watching. Photos and videos of black children being attacked shocked the nation. People who had been neutral could no longer pretend this was just about politics. This moment forced President John F. Kennedy to finally act. It pushed the government toward what would become the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Birmingham proved something powerful. When America's racism was dragged into the light, it couldn't hide anymore. Follow for episode 26, where we'll break down the March on Washington, Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, and the laws that finally started to change. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.
Hey family, welcome to episode 26 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode, we talked about Birmingham, fire hoses, police dogs, and how America's racism was finally exposed to the world. Now, the movement was about to reach a moment no one could ignore. In August 1963, over 250,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Black families, white allies, church groups, students, workers. They came demanding three simple things: jobs, justice, and equality. And that day, a man named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and delivered a speech that changed history.
I have a dream.
But that speech wasn't just poetry. It was a warning. It was a demand. It was a declaration that black people were done waiting for America to live up to its own words. The March on Washington forced the federal government to act. In 1964, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, banning segregation in public places and outlawing job discrimination. For the first time since Reconstruction, real legal change was written into law. But even then, the fight wasn't over. Because voting rights were still being stolen, police brutality was still happening, economic inequality was still crushing black communities. So the movement kept marching. Follow for episode 27, where we'll dive into Selma, Bloody Sunday, and the fight for voting rights. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.
Hey family, welcome to episode 27 of Black History in Order, where we tell the story of Black America, one step at a time. Last episode, we talked about the March on Washington and how America was finally forced to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But there was still one major right being stolen from black people every single day: the right to vote. In places like Selma, Alabama, black citizens were blocked from voting through literacy tests, fake laws, intimidation, and straight-up violence. So in 1965, civil rights leaders organized a peaceful march from Selma to Montgomery to demand federal voting protections. What happened next shocked the world. On a day that became known as Bloody Sunday, peaceful marchers were met by state troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They were beaten with batons, tear-gassed, trampled by horses. Men, women, and children were brutalized on live television for trying to exercise a basic human right. Once again, America couldn't hide anymore. The images of Bloody Sunday forced President Lyndon B. Johnson to finally act. Later that year, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed, banning racist voting laws and sending federal oversight into states that had been suppressing black voters for decades. For the first time since Reconstruction, black voting power began to rise again. But as we'll see next, every victory came with backlash. Follow for episode 28, where we'll dive into Black Power, Malcolm X, the rise of radical resistance, and a new chapter of the movement. And click the link in my bio for the full story of Black America, from the 1300s all the way to today. Thank you so much for watching, and stay blessed, family.